Joel Anderson. Thank you all for coming. I wanted to introduce Josh Libby. He's our local Boy Scout who will be leading our flag salute today.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Josh. I also wanted to recognize, because we have a beautiful venue we're at here today, President of Grossmont Community College, Denise Wisenhunt. Thank you.
Good afternoon. First, I want to give special thanks to Supervisor Joel Anderson and his team for bringing such an important topic to our campus. It is a complete honor for us to be able to facilitate that, and so I wanted to thank you. We know that this is a critical topic in our community. We see ourselves as collaborators in this work. We, Grossmont College, serving about 14,000 students every year. Many of our students come, some whom are homeless. Prior to serving this role, I served on the Monarch Board in San Diego for students who were homeless. And right now on our campus, we have about 4 new students who are part of the Monarch family who've come to our campus. We recognize the critical needs of providing basic needs for our community. And so we are partners in this work. And so we want to thank you for the opportunity to facilitate or be a part of this discussion, the opportunity too to share our culinary, extraordinary food that's outside the door. If you haven't had it, you got to go out there and taste it. Exquisite. And also just a continued opportunity to serve and educate, get our community job ready. So thank you so very much again. Thank you.
Thank you, President Wisenhunt. My name is Barry Jantz. I'm your moderator today. By way of introduction, I was on the La Mesa City Council for about 16 years. That was a long time ago. And I retired last year as the CEO of the Grossmont Healthcare District, which is your East County Public Hospital District. And since then, I've been doing some governmental affairs and community affairs consulting. So we have what purports to be a great forum and discussion today. I'm going to give you some ground rules on that, and we're going to talk about how that's going to look. I've got a few housekeeping items. I will say that on the way here, I stopped and got a Starbucks. Well, it was actually a Gladly coffee, and I got a cookie, and then I got here and I was, why did I do that? I had no idea. You know, I'm just a moderator. They keep me in the dark on, you know, the food that's going to be here and everything. I saved some room. I will do that, but anyway, we're going to do some introductions, and I'm going to tell you about what the next hour and a half looks like. But first I want to do some thank yous, because we want to thank Josh Libby from Troop 362 for being here. You're going to hear a little bit more about them in a second, but we have Councilmembers Goebel and Ortiz from the City of El Cajon. I'll introduce them more fully. City Manager Graham Mitchell, and we have Police Chief Mike Moulton. So thanks all for being here. And then some other elected officials that may be here. Jill Bartow from the Cajon Valley Union School District. Are you here, Jill? Haven't seen her. I'll point her out as she walks in. Robin Joy Maxson. She's the chair of the Ramona Community Planning Group. Robin, I did see you. Thanks for being here today. And we mentioned Mike as one of our public safety leaders, the police chief, but also Corporal Shane Stoner from Heart Homeless Assistance Resource Team Deputies. I think he's here someplace. There he is. These guys that look all beefed out, they're not just here for security. They're here because they are involved in homeless programs. And also Corporal Kirsty Cross, also for Heart Homeless Assistance Resource Team Deputies. There you are. Thanks for being here. Our wonderful sponsors today, HNK CPAs. I don't know what the HNK stands for. And obviously our exceptional host. We just met the college president from she's the college president at Grossmont, but our host is Grossmont Cuyamaca Community College District for using the campus here at Grossmont College. Michelle Klock, the Director of Public Information Government and Community Relations for Grossmont College. Michelle, I know you're here, and I know she's been working overtime trying to put this together, so thank you. And last but certainly not least, Grossmont Culinary Department for the refreshments. Yes. So how am I on the sound? Am I good? In the back? Not too loud? Okay, great. Did I miss any elected officials? Oh, Michael Vu, who's the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for the County of San Diego. Where are you, Michael? Where are you? There you are. Thanks for being here. And I just saw Virginia Hall, who's the president of the Grossmont Healthcare District. I know that one without having to read it because she used to be my boss, okay? So let me tell you about some goals for today, and then we'll get into introductions. We are going to do that. We're going to do that. So goals for today. We're looking for a positive dialogue between two local government agencies. They're all sitting here, with the result being possible solutions to collaborate further in addressing homelessness and the impacts of homelessness. So that's goal number one. The second goal is so the public, so all of you, can be informed of the issues surrounding homelessness, and that includes programs that local governments have in place to assist the homeless. So that's obviously the County of San Diego and the City of El Cajon. Also, the public can be more informed of impacts resulting from homelessness in our communities and how they're being addressed, those impacts. And lastly, how concerned citizens can take action to improve programs and solutions. Okay, so those are our goals for today. They may have some other goals as they discuss and we get into the dialogue. We have limited time today, okay? An hour and a half sounds like a lot of time, but it's not really a lot of time. So let me just tell you about the agenda. So once we get going, we're going to have the City of El Cajon provide an update on efforts to address homelessness in the city. And that'll be led by, I think, the city manager, but I'm sure he will ask others with him, including the council members and the police chief, to weigh in a little bit. And then that'll be about 15 minutes. Then about 2:25 or so, depending on how we're rolling, we'll have County Supervisor Anderson update on efforts to address homelessness in East County from the county's perspective. Then at about 2:40, we're going to start a moderated discussion between the county and city on ideas to improve action items and resolutions. So that, as I said, that's one of the goals. We come out with some resolutions today if we can. And then we're going to be taking, because of the limited time today, we're going to be taking written questions from you. So I think if you hold up your hand if you're staff and you've got the whatever they need to write questions on, okay, maybe everybody's got one. But if you want to write your question down, staff will pick it up and then we'll collect those. And because it's really only about a half hour for that today, we won't be having people stand up and asking questions. In fact, staff will be going through those questions to see if we have some common themes that can be addressed in that half hour by whoever wants to answer them, all right? Now, keep in mind, some of you may have come and you wanted to stand up and speak today or whatever is on your mind. This today does not preclude future programs like this where there may be more dialogue. But I know that Supervisor Anderson and maybe the council members as well will be staying after 3:30 if any of you want to dialogue with them directly. So that written questions, again, will start at 3:30 will conclude the formal event, and if so desired, as I said, electeds to remain to speak with attendees having additional questions. The only other thing on my agenda, although it's not on yours, is that at 4:45 we got to end this thing because the Padre game starts, all right? So I'm thinking we got to wrap it up at, I got to think we got to wrap it up at 4:30, right? So we can get to wherever we're going, all right? So if you really want to stay and dialogue with them, you can. And I'm guessing they're going to do it as long as you want. But maybe we should kind of agree informally to move on if we can. So anyway, so that's how we're proceeding. So I'm looking to the participants today. Did I miss anything that I should be explaining about how we're going to proceed today? Or are we good? All right. Good. So let's see how we're doing on time. Look at that. We're like right where we need to be. So keeping those goals in mind, I'm going to go right to the City of El Cajon But first I'm going to do some introductions because I kind of passed on that a little bit. And people were looking at me, you're not going to introduce the supervisor? What are you doing? So let's start. No particular order other than my handouts. We have Councilmember Steve Goebel, who's right almost smack dab in the middle. Councilmember Goebel was elected to the Elkhorn City. I'm going to do this briefly. If they want to jump in and tell you more about themselves and use up their time, they can. But so he was elected in November 2016. He was raised in Elkhorn. He's lived in the city for over 25 years. He's a graduate of Grossmont High School and Grossmont College. Okay. He earned a Bachelor of Science and Master's degree in Business Administration from San Diego State University. Obviously, Grossmont College gave him a good start, right? He did serve as Senior Vice President of a San Diego-based franchisor of Business Service Center freight shipping brands with over 650 locations across the U.S. and over 150 internationally. I think he's retired from the private sector about 1.5 years now. And among other things, he's now a substitute teacher, and that's how he's giving back to his community. So thank you for being here, Councilmember Goebel. Also, Councilmember Phil Ortiz, right here. Phil is an East County native. He received a BA at San Diego State University and an MA at Ashford University. Doesn't say anything about Grossmont College on this one, that's all right. He's a small business owner who helps homeowners reduce their electric bill and be good stewards of the environment. I'm not shilling for him. That was in his bio, okay? But if you want to talk to him about that, you can. In addition to his efforts to enhance the quality of life for Elkhorn citizens, Councilmember Ortiz also served on the Planning Commission in the city of Elkhorn, where he was instrumental in preserving private property rights and maintaining neighborhood character. We're going to talk a little bit about neighborhood character today, probably. Also with us is Chief Mike Moulton. He was appointed El Cajon's police chief in 2019, and at the time that was announced, he had served in the El Cajon Police Department for 24 years. So my math says it's about 27 years now. Is that right? And during his time with the police department, he served various roles. He served as captain going back to 2015, so a couple, 4 years there as captain or so. And it gave him broad leadership perspective of the department. He also served as a lieutenant, and he oversaw training, internal affairs, and served as a watch commander. So I wanted him sitting right here in case I needed protection, but they arranged their own seating. So what can I say?
Some time at Grossmont College.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that in. And also the city manager, Graham Mitchell. He was announced as city manager in 2018, and that was on a 5-0 vote. By the way, that was so. He was named assistant city manager prior to that in Elkhorn in March 2017, and he had previously been Escondido city manager until 2016, and before that he was city manager in Lemon Grove for 12 years before leaving for the Escondido position in 2015. So I won't say, when he got to Elkhorn it was a promotion or anything. I don't want to insult anybody from Lemon Grove or Escondido, but you can take it however you will. But thank you for being here, Graham. And then lastly, Supervisor Joel Anderson served East County, San Diego. I think most people know in the state assembly. He was in the state assembly for a couple years, and in the state senate from 2010 to 2018. And before that, he served on the Padre Dam Municipal Water District and the Resource Conservation District of Greater San Diego County. He has a degree in finance from Cal Poly Pomona after transferring from Grossmont Community College in El Cajon. So those are the introductions. When I've gone on long enough, let's hear from the city of El Cajon, and this again, what you're doing to address homelessness. I know you're doing a lot, and maybe what you see as how the county can improve how you can address homelessness in the county. And by the way, it's not a debate unless it needs to be. But it's not going to be, we're not planning on a debate. We're looking at a constructive forum today. I'm here to drive traffic. That's all I need to do. If it goes really well today, you can thank me. If it doesn't, you can blame the politicians. But we're gonna go to you for about 15 minutes, Graham. Okay?
Sounds great. Thanks for being here. Again, my name's Graham. I'm going to turn the time over to Councilmember Ortiz and Goebel, and then I'll kind of talk about the meat of what the city of El Cajon has been doing in the realm of homelessness. But I just wanted to first plug the council members. In fact, and there's 3 council members that couldn't be here today. We'd have a Brown Act violation if we did. But one of the things that I'm most proud about our city council is these folks walk the talk. It's easy to sit on a dais and pontificate about solutions, but they are actually, each of them individually in their own way, involved in solutions. And you'll probably, hopefully they'll share some of what they're doing. If they don't, I will. But I'm going to turn the time over to them to kind of give some introductory remarks, and then I'll kind of talk about what we're doing and maybe some of the challenges that the city of El Cajon sees.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. As Barry said, my name is Phil Ortiz. I'm El Cajon City Councilman. Excuse me, I'm battling a hoarse voice from cheering for the Padres. I first want to start off by saying, well, thank you everyone for being here, because it shows that you care about your community. And one of my residents told me just recently, it's so hard, we're so discouraged, it doesn't seem like anything's getting better. We're here to show you that our programs are working, and if we give up on our community, then there's no hope, and we need to keep hope in all of this. I want to also say, secondly, everyone here takes this homeless situation extremely seriously. I spend the majority of my mental energy and time not only fielding calls and emails, but trying to come up with solutions for homelessness in all of San Diego and really the entire region, California. I was homeless in college. And so my depth of knowledge and my care for people out on the street goes deeper than I think anyone has. I've had family members who are homeless, living out of storage facilities. I wasn't living out of a storage facility. I was couch surfing and living out of my truck, taking showers at the gym, burning bridges with my friends because I was sleeping too long on couches. So I know what it's like. Secondly, or last is what I'll talk about, is when we have these forums, we need to define who we're talking about and define our terms. So often we talk past each other when we're talking about homelessness. And so these terms that I'm going to throw out there are from experts who have been working with homeless for decades. The 2 types of homeless people we have are situationally homeless and chronic homeless. Situationally homeless, simply defined, someone who's down on their luck. They lost their job. A college student, poor college student, got kicked out of who got kicked out of their apartment. Single mom, father left them. They need a hand up. Situationally homeless. The second type that we can broadly define is chronic homeless. Someone who's been on the street for 6 months or more, and I would say have some kind of addiction issue or mental health issue. That's hindering them from lifting themselves up out of their place of distress. The city of El Cajon has a lot of programs, and there's a lot of help for situationally homeless. We have been successful with that. Reason being, it's inexpensive. It's relatively inexpensive to help these people. And Graham's going to go through this. Chronic homeless, people dealing with mental health and addiction issues. That is a very expensive process to help these people. We're talking, because you're not just dealing with their homelessness, their financial situation or their housing situation. You're dealing with the trauma of their life. You're dealing with anxiety. You're dealing with depression. You're dealing with trauma, addiction. That requires mental health professionals. That requires sometimes medication. That requires a lot of money. And so a small city like El Cajon doesn't have the budget to erect a mental health facility with 24-hour care and doctors and psychiatrists and things like that. So that's why it's so important for us to define our terms. And the majority of the people that we see on the street, the visibly homeless, are chronic homeless. And so we need to make sure we're defining our terms. I'm not going to get into my resume of what I've done with regard to homelessness. I'll leave that to Steve because he's really a champion of it as well. But I want to make sure that everyone here up on this panel cares about this deeply. We're all taking this very seriously.
I'm going to stand, if you don't mind, just so I can see some of you in the back. Phil's right. The city of El Cajon has been doing a lot of things. A friend of mine who used to work at the county would talk to his contact at the Union Tribune. How come you don't write about these good things that the county is doing? Saving money. And the reporter said, it's easy. We don't write about that because we expect you to. Which was very insightful. So what you're going to hear about some things from our city manager today are the successes. And they don't make the news because, rightly so, you expect us to. But now because you're here, you're going to hear the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say in his radio show. So thank you for coming and being part of this. This is a great informational session for you, and I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. And I'm gonna stand too. That way I can see everybody. So I forgot to mention that when I was the city manager of Lemon Grove, I started realizing I needed to get in better shape. And so I took 2 classes at Grossmont College, soccer classes. It was a little weird, a 40-year-old guy taking classes with 18-year-old kids, but it was fun. It got me in shape. So really quickly, if there's 3 messages that you can take away, is that I believe the city of El Cajon is perhaps doing more than any other city in the county of San Diego when it comes to dealing with homelessness. Number 2, there is a lack of regional collaboration when it comes to homelessness. And the reality is that homeless individuals, although they go homeless typically where they most recently lived, it's one of the reasons we have so much homelessness in this area and not in, say, Coronado. You don't go homeless in Coronado, you go homeless in a place like El Cajon. They don't care where the boundary is. And so having regional collaboration is vital, and there's a lack of it. And I'll give some examples of how we're trying to combat that, but also some areas where we can get better at it. And then lastly is we as cities and the county of San Diego, if you're a government jurisdiction in the state of California and you're trying to help the homeless or combat the impacts of homelessness, you are literally fighting the battle with not one hand but both hands tied behind your back. The state laws that currently exist, county policies when it comes to prisons and who can go into county jail is pretty restrictive. And so there was a time where we used the criminal justice program or system to house homeless. By the way, that's a really expensive way to house homeless and very ineffective. However, just kicking a whole bunch of people out on the street and then saying, well, we hope you all figure it out, that's probably also a really ineffective and inefficient way to deal with it. So we need to have a statewide collaborative conversation about how to deal with the criminal justice aspect of homelessness too. But first of all, let me talk about some of the successes. I don't think everyone has this, but I started handing out this piece of paper here. If you have this is kind of a cheat sheet of what we are doing on homelessness. We have a website that has all the same information as well. But we have offered a lot of programs, about a dozen programs that are really focused on helping individuals find permanent housing. That's our number one goal. It is not to warehouse folks. It is not to accommodate a homeless lifestyle. It's really to steer people into permanent housing, because we know that's, in the end, the most cost-effective and best solution for society. We have piloted a program with the Salvation Army. Salvation Army, I saw them here. And that program now is offered countywide. And it is extremely inexpensive way to get people back into supportive housing with their family members or friends. We've partnered with Once Crisis House and now with Home Start. And through that process, we've offered housing navigation. In fact, I think we're the 3rd city in the county to offer housing navigation after San Diego and Encinitas. We are the first city, and now so far the only city in the county that has changed zoning to allow for tiny cabins or emergency cabins to house homeless. And so it's a zoning tool that we did. Mr. Goebel was out for how many weekends? At least 3 months with a hammer in the hot sun this summer building these homes. And are we accepting people yet? First week of November, we'll be accepting folks. So we're hoping that we've been trying to look at what we can do, not only to help us with our homeless issue, but also to import, or I should say export, to other cities throughout the region. I think these are some great examples. Over the last 2.5 years, we have spent almost $3 million on homeless solutions. We have found permanent housing, not warehousing, but permanent housing for 737 individuals. We have found temporary shelter for almost 3,000 individuals. we have decreased the number of unsheltered homeless, which is, in my mind, the folks sleeping on the street, the group that we should be focusing on. Between the point in time count in 2020 and 2022, we've actually reduced that number by 40%, and that's a big deal. We're getting people off the street and into housing. If you look at the number, again, the point in time count, the number of the sheltered homeless per capita, we exceeded by, I think, like 8 times more than the next biggest city, which is the city of San Diego. So we are doing our part. Can we do more? Absolutely. Do we need more suggestions? Absolutely. When we get lots of brains together like this, that's when solutions can come about, because we can start bouncing ideas and innovation off of each other. But I'm really proud of the work that we have done when it comes to finding permanent solutions for those that are on the streets of El Cajon. Let me talk about some collaboration. The city manager of Lemon Grove and I were at a city manager conference a few years ago, and we heard an example of 10 cities in North Orange County coming together and developing a memorandum of understanding where they would say, we're going to build 2 shelters amongst the 10 cities, and we're going to figure out how to fund those with all 10 cities. And we're going to have this agreement that will help facilitate that. So that's Lydia Romero and I. We went back to our colleagues in La Mesa and Santee. We got them on board. We started drafting it. We brought the county into the conversation. They're part of this memorandum of understanding. So we have this document that says we are committed to collaborate. And so now we just need a project to collaborate with. The city of El Cajon recently applied for a grant to hopefully buy property. We have it picked out. We can't buy it until we know we get the money, so that property may fall out of an agreement, but we're trying to secure that property, and if we can get that, we'll be the first shelter in East County that can be funded by all the parties of this MOU, which is a really cool step in the right direction. Now let me talk about where we're not doing well when it comes to collaboration. The Regional Task Force on Homelessness recently came out with this plan that they want all 18 cities to adopt. This is a plan that cities are to implement. I learned about this by a press release or seeing it on the news. So I reached out to all the other 17 city managers in the county and said, maybe I just missed an email. Did I miss a meeting? Was I not invited? No one had heard about this. And that's the kind of collaboration we need. We got to talk more with each other. We're, like Mr. Ortiz said, we're talking past each other all the time. And it's insane that there's only 18 cities in this county and the county of San Diego. We should be talking together more than we are, but we're not. We're talking at each other and not with each other. And I think we need to start coming together and doing that. City of El Cajon, we can influence our own sphere, and so that's what we're doing with our own East County cities, but we're hoping that hopefully the county can take a role. We hope that the regional task force can repent of their sins and have a better dialogue with the cities that they are supposed to serve, and we'll be part of that solution. Now let me just talk about a couple things where we struggle. If you look at a chart of homelessness across the United States per state, you'll notice that every large state, their homeless populations have either decreased or have plateaued over the last 6, 7, 8 years, except for one state. Guess what state? California, exactly right. And it's interesting that you can see these spikes in homelessness as Proposition 47, which pushed people out onto the streets, as Prop 57 was passed by the voters, which decriminalized a lot of felonies, and as counties, because of COVID, stopped intaking people that were breaking the law. It's interesting that these spikes all correlate with those points in time. And so we as a city, we get calls all day long. Why can't the police chief get a backbone and go get rid of these people? I don't know what that means, to get rid of these people. There's no way to get rid of these people. It would be improper, unethical, and illegal to put them on a bus and ship them to Yuma, although that is the #1 request that we get. We can't do that. And so until some of those laws change, and those laws will only change as as we talk as a community, we're going to be, like I said, working with both hands tied behind our back. And so we need some help legislatively at the state level and at the county level, so we can start booking people that repeatedly break the law that we can do nothing about. So with that, that's where we're at as a city. We'll be here to talk about more about what we're doing, and love to hear your questions.
Thank you, Graham, and thanks, City of El Cajon. And before the supervisor goes, I saw Bonnie. I didn't get you. You're one on my list. Bonnie Baronoff, who runs the East County Homeless Task Force, not to be confused with the regional task force on the homeless, which he just said needs to repent. East County Homeless Task Force is an effort that was actually started through the East County Chamber that's now largely operating kind of independently, I guess. This is safe to say it. But Bonnie, I wanted to point you out. Raise your hand. In case anybody wants to talk to her at some point after about getting involved in that effort. Okay? Thanks for being here. Supervisor Anderson.
Thank you.
What's that? Mike, did you want?
Probably, I'll be able to add more.
Okay, great. Thanks.
I'm going to stand up too so you can see me. First of all, I want to thank El Cajon. I've lived in East County for the last 35 years, and I've seen firsthand the great work they've done. You've bared the burden like no other city in San Diego County. And I had said when I was running for office, by the way, I was bold enough to put fix homelessness on my campaign. Anybody should live the way they are. And I've said on more than one occasion publicly that for far too long, El Cajon's gone it alone for too long. And they need better partners. And I wanted the county to be a better partner. And I also was a huge advocate of the MOU. In fact, we have a resource board here with all the cities and their letters in the county's MOU that everybody signed on to. If you want to see a copy of it, it's over there. It's item number 2. I have a little cheat sheet of all the different items. Because I thought, it's really important that we talk about what's real if we're going to work together. And some of the things that the county's doing, I'm very excited about. Prior to me being elected, we didn't have any shelters whatsoever in the unincorporated. My predecessor didn't believe we had a homeless issue, and that's okay. She did a lot of really great things, and things have gotten really bad in the last few years. If you were to go back 20 years ago, homelessness was nowhere close to our #1 issue. But that's all changed. And so let me just walk through some of the things that I'm working on. You all are probably familiar with Magnolia Street. I got elected and sworn in January of last year, and I started on that in February. And it's not easy to move people out. I believe it's 102 or 104 of those applicants we offered hotel vouchers to. That you heard Graham speak to this, but there's a court decision called the Boise decision. And what it says is homelessness is not a crime. And yet, if you have no place to go, you're allowed to sleep on the streets. But if you do have a place to go, then the police chief can go after people who sleep on the streets who refuse to get help. And so we have to create those shelters in order to enforce the law. And we want to create those shelters, right? Why would we want anybody to live on the street that way? We want to give them a path to a better life. But if people choose to take over our parks, to take over our streets, to take over what we've paid for so our kids and grandkids can participate and use, and now are being denied access, well, that's not right either. Everyone has to meet halfway to help each other. And so while we were moving forward with shelters, I'm trying to put a shelter in every community in my district so that we can help the most amount of people that want help. At the same time, I'm not going to allow people to commandeer and take over all the swing sets in my district. So having said that, we used Diane Jacob and Jim Desmond created a voucher program for us, and I believe it was 2018. We have a copy of the board letter that when it was designed, and the idea was to, while we're trying to build shelters, we would give them temporary housing that would allow them allow us to enforce the law, but allow them wraparound services with a caseworker to find permanent housing. Now, you all should have had a pamphlet. It's a fact sheet on that voucher program, and I think it's important. It answers a lot of questions. But essentially, a year ago, we had 111 people in that program. Today, we have 121. And by the way, the number changes every day, right? We're offering vouchers. Some people leave, some people stay. And so that number's a little bit fluid. But we've been pretty stable right around that number this whole time. Having said that, 30% of the people that we put into that system over the last year are in permanent housing today. 20% were kicked out of the program because they violated the rules. You see, they have to sign a contract in order to get into the system. They have to attempt to become permanently not homeless. So one of the things, we're not doing Q&A, but I'm going to be here all night. I'll stay and talk to everybody, and later there will be Q&A. So, but the bottom line, though, is without that tool, we have no ability to move people out of Magnolia. Now, it took almost 9 months of moving those people out, having outreach every day, and 102 of those folks went into the voucher system. So I think it's important to know that. The second thing is the voucher system does not allow drug use, it does not allow illegal activities. They have to stay within the rules of the hotel. If the hotel says, hey, we don't want you here, they get kicked out. We can't force anybody to do anything. We can only offer them opportunity. It's the same with the hotels. No hotel is forced into the system. We pay $145 a night, and if you want to rent to us, you may rent to us, but you don't have to. It's entirely up to you. But that's a very, very strong tool as we attempt and continue to build shelters. I had a community coffee about 4 months ago in Lakeside to talk about this, and gosh, I think it was 4 hours of people being educated on the issue. They didn't understand. We know at the point in time, I was in the state legislature, I served you there, I was never home available to do the point in time count. This last year I was able to. It's the first time we did it in 2 years. And I was knocking on tents at 3 in the morning, asking people how they got to be homeless and how, you know, what services do they need. I wanted to see firsthand so I could best serve them. And Councilman Ortiz said it best. There's a wide variety. It's not one stop for these folks. I ran into a couple. They had been homeless for a couple of weeks. They came out here for a job. They got out here, and there was no job. And they had spent all their money, hoping that they would get the job, you know, hovering for the job. And they said, we just want to get home. Well, the county has programs, and so does the city. If somebody wants to go home, and there's somebody in another city who says they will give them a place to stay, that's the key. We're not just shipping people out, but we're returning loved ones home to their original home. You know, we have a lot of runaway kids that come out here, and they get out here and they realize, oh my gosh, maybe my parents weren't so bad. And we contact those parents. And I know in the city of El Cajon, I think, Steve, I heard you speak about this a year ago, of how successful that program is. So that's a great niche, and we were able to get those, within a week, we were able to ship those people home. But the next guy was there, he had been there for over 19 years. All his friends lived in that encampment. He was not going to leave. We had to move him with all his friends because that's his community. And when we set up these shelters, we're setting them up with security so that people can sleep at night knowing that they're not going to be robbed. We're setting up with wraparound services. Nothing the county does, it doesn't involve a caseworker and wraparound services for permanent change. So I wanted to make sure you knew that we were moving forward with it. But you know, to site a shelter takes almost 2 years to site it and build it. It takes a lot of time to do that because you have to jump through all the environmental hurdles, all the other hurdles that you would if you were to build anything else. But we're exploring all of it, and I'm reaching out. But I've been on the job, this is now approaching my 2nd year. I have to learn my job. This is not an easy job to do. It's easy to get elected, it's hard to govern. And so we also are looking at the mental health aspects. We are moving forward, and I want to make sure I say this right, with a crisis stabilization unit in El Cajon. For the first time ever in East County, if you have a loved one who is having an episode, you'll have a place that's open 7/24 that you can take them to stabilize them. Or if the person is having an episode of any type, we'll be able to take the homeless and stabilize them. Law enforcement, instead of picking up people on a 5150, which is, I don't know the correct term, but a crazy call. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. That's a much better definition than crazy call. But the bottom line, though, is instead of going over to Grossmont in the emergency room and losing an officer for 4 hours, 6 hours, while they are inadequately trying to address mental health when they're really about physical health, we will now have a facility that the officer will be able to take that person there, or a family member will stabilize them, and they'll be able to go home within 24 hours. We're also working with Edgemore over in Santee, but this is, this stuff takes time to build, and it's not going to be online immediately, but we're adding additional mental health beds at Edgemore with the intention of some of these folks need more permanent care than 24-hour. And they're right now, we don't have the capacity to address that, but we're going to add the capacity, and we're negotiating and working with the city of Santee. One of the things that we did is we recognized that there are a lot of people who have jobs and are working and have kids, and they live in their car. We heard from Councilman Ortiz that he was couch surfing, and he could have been one of those people that was living in their car, and yet they're parking on our streets. And at 3 a.m, when their 3-year-old has to go to the bathroom, where are they going to go? There's nothing open. There's nothing for them. But we took that Magnolia site and we turned it into a safe parking. So now there's a bathroom, there's a shower. We're meeting their needs. These people have jobs. They just can't afford to live here. And they're trying to raise the money to find permanent housing, and we're working with them with wraparound services. We're also, their kids are going to school in the Cajon Valley schools. One of the things that most people don't realize is in East County, we didn't have a big homeless issue. And after this last point in contact that we went through, if you add North County and South Bay together, we have more homeless in East County than the two of them combined. The only area that has more homelessness is in the city of San Diego. So we've got to get smart about how we do this. And that's why, on Magnolia, part of it's in the county of San Diego and part of it's in the city. And for far too long, when the city would try to clean it up, they'd take 2 steps to their left and they were in the county. And when the sheriffs came out, we have a great care unit, they go out and do outreach all the time, and they don't get the credit that they deserve. Thank you for your hard work in the county with the care unit. Santee uses them all the time, and they've had a profound positive impact out there. But when we'd send our care unit, they take 2 steps into the city to avoid it. That MOU allows us to work together. Hopefully, then the sheriffs and the police chief are all working together to not push them down the street, but get them off the street. Because they shouldn't have to live like that, but every one of those businesses, they provide jobs that create the wealth that allow people to feed their families. It's not fair to them either. So there has to be a balance, but the only way we're going to get to that balance is by working together. That's why I called the meeting today, because I don't want to negotiate through press conferences. I want to do things that have affecting change for the better. I'm going to get termed out, and I'm still going to live in this community, and I'm not going to live like this, and you shouldn't either. Thank you.
Okay, you do recall we started a little bit late. I think it was about, maybe 7 or 10 minutes late. So, if everybody's in agreement, depending on how it goes and how much, I understand you're staying, but we'll probably run the formal program till about 3:40 or so, just so we can get it all in. So now we want to get into some discussion, and I had some questions to prompt discussion. I actually don't know if I'm going to need those. My first question was actually, and Graham, I think you really touched on this one, because mine, you just said your hands are tied, basically. My question was way more, to what extent do federal and state laws and court actions impact local government's ability to take action to address homelessness? Okay, so, but do we want to get into that a little bit more? Does the public need to understand a little bit more to what extent You know, and so the bottom line question is, in other words, are higher levels of government having an impact on local control? That's really the question. So who wants to start with that? And this can be for the city or the county.
So I'll touch on this briefly, and so I think it's important that you have. I could talk about this for 2 hours, and I'll talk briefly about Prop 47, 57, and AB 109. And I could talk about each one of those for half an hour. So please do some research on them. Prop 47, Prop 57, they were passed by the voters overwhelmingly. Prop 47 reduced a lot of felonies to misdemeanors. It was called the Safe Schools and Neighborhood Act. That's what the politicians named it. There's nothing in the bill that has anything to do with safe schools and neighborhoods. But as voters, when we see that on our ballot, who doesn't want safe schools and neighborhoods? So it's passed. And again, so I'll try to condense this. I'll try to distill this down into a couple minutes. The chronic homeless that we're seeing on the street that are committing crimes, they used to be in and out of custody. They used to get arrested. They'd spend 3 months in jail. They'd be out of jail for 3 months. They'd get arrested. They'd be in jail for 6 months. They'd get out. They're just out now. They're not in anymore. And to kind of wrap it up and bring it home, somebody could walk through that door right now using narcotics, actively using narcotics. They could be smoking methamphetamine, cocaine, fentanyl. Walk up to any one of you in the audience and punch you in the face, and then come and steal this microphone. And I cannot put that person in jail. They'll get a ticket. So that kind of tells you what we're dealing with on the criminal justice side.
Go ahead. A friend of mine is a correctional officer at Donovan State Prison. I asked her yesterday, I said, so how full is Donovan State Prison? You might remember several years ago, a federal judge said that California prisons have to lower their occupation because they were too full. And some of those people got put out on the street. She said, and this is her comment, so this isn't a verified or vetted, but it's a point of reference. She said, we're 70% full, I would guess. So if they're 70% full and they're not accepting new people, that means county jails can't send people to state prison. And during COVID, county jails had to reduce their population, according to the sheriff, from 5,600 to 3,400. So that means fewer people actually got booked into jail during COVID. Well, now, I don't know if that's been lifted yet as a policy, but now you have these lower level offenders not even getting into jail because they don't have space to send them to prison because there's still space in the prison. So you've got this kind of this upside down backwards thing where you have lawbreakers who aren't going to jail, where in some cases in the voucher system we have people with felony warrants out for their arrest. And these people have an arrest warrant. We need to arrest them and put them in the jail. They're felons. Living across the street from me was a state parolee at large wanted for a parole violation. And he was arrested. I don't know where he went. It's this dynamic between county jail and state prison and the occupancy. Arresting homeless people and taking them to jail just isn't going to happen because they're going to be released from jail if they even get booked into jail, because that's the lowest level of offense. And that's one of the frustrations that we have as a city and a police department is it's just not working to arrest people and to take them to jail because they won't stay in jail. And that's a frustration. The best we can do, and I think it's right, is to keep them moving along and not set up camp. Because if they set up camp, we see what's happened with Magnolia. If they're allowed to stay too long, they set up a camp and then all sorts of bad things can happen. So I thank the supervisor for clearing the camp because that helped a lot. But this is what's happening to us with the state prison, county jail, lower level offender is just not getting into jail, and that's kind of where we're handcuffed. AB 47 was felonies and misdemeanors. AB 57 was a reclassification of serious crimes to lesser crimes. AB 109 was a reduced time in prison or more credit for those kind of things. And all those things together, we just can't send people to jail like we used to for crimes, for drug possession. I watched the guy at Home Depot walk in and grab the Milwaukee tools and walk out the emergency room door with the door sounding the alarm. And nobody does anything because he knows if it's under $950, it's a misdemeanor ticket. That's crazy in our world. It's a misdemeanor ticket. And he goes in and steals that stuff. I watched him walk out, and nobody wants the liability of confronting this guy because you don't know if he's on drugs, if he has a weapon. So you know what? It's a cost of doing business for Home Depot, which is very sad because it means higher prices for the rest of us. So I'm trying to explain some of the constraints that we have.
Just go down the line if you want. We can go back and forth. We're not putting time restraints on anybody, within reason, that is.
He said that right before I spoke. I agree with everything that our chief and Councilmember Goebel said, and I want to stress we are not talking about all homeless with regard to arresting. We're talking about the criminal element within the homeless population. There is, I think, a small glimmer of hope with Care Court, and I'll briefly touch on that because I think it was just passed in this last session in the state legislature. And it basically summed up says if there can be a referral by a social worker or a family member or a medical professional or a law enforcement professional that puts a person who is not mentally well in front of a care court judge, so to speak, to gauge this person's mental capacity. I mean, we've all seen videos. I don't know if everyone's seen videos, but I've seen videos of people. There's this one, it's in LA County. This poor man, he's completely nude and he's running headfirst into cars. We need to be able to do something about that. And this care court allows us to be able to do something about it. Say, this person is not mentally well. They cannot be out on the street. Their psychosis is so deep that they're hurting themselves. And this is what Supervisor Anderson was talking about with 5150 calls. I'm of the belief if you have multiple 5150 calls, which is a danger to yourself or others, within 6 months, 3 months, then you need some help, and it needs to be forced. So you either go get treatment or you go to jail. It's one of the two. But these concepts are not new. They do it in New Jersey, and you see the testimonies of these people who were forced into care. And they rehabbed and they got better, and they're talking to the camera. I would have been dead. I would have died. I would have killed someone, or I would have died. So it's not a new concept, but our state legislatures, representatives need to catch up with the crisis that we're seeing here. And this care court, I don't know if we've examined it and how that even would work, but I think it's a glimmer of hope in saying we can forcefully put these people to give them help. I don't know if anyone wants to go.
Phil, I appreciate you bringing up the care court. When they were proposing it, we sent a letter in support, and I actually sent a letter out to all my communities. And if you're on my newsletter, you will have gotten a copy of it asking you to sign on to my letter. This is a fundamentally huge issue for us in how we address people. We have a person downtown that likes to sleep on the trolley line, and the city of San Diego has complained bitterly about it because they have to keep sending people out, and there's nothing they can do. We've got to have the tools in the toolbox. Now, look, I'm for civil liberty, and I don't want to give anything up. But when a person fails to take care of themselves, we have to have the tools to make sure they don't just injure themselves, but take other people with them. Having said that, I think that there's been so much spoken about the county's voucher system. I want to address just a couple quick things with it. First of all, we screen for warrants. We don't put anybody in that has a warrant. So of all the people that had warrants, they were either out of our system or they were in another voucher system. We are not the only voucher system being accepted in the city of El Cajon. There are others, and I can't speak, although we do have a handout that lists others with what their program requirements are. We have a caseworker, and we have wraparound services, and we screen those folks. Now, the county, the city had some issues, like we don't notify the city when we send people there. Some of it is we didn't because we can't give the name. But I went back to staff and said, well, why can't we just say we're sending somebody? I mean, let's not let the law be an excuse for not being good neighbors. So you're going to be getting that moving forward. Where we can work together, where we can make your job easier, I want to make it easier. We're not going to solve, this is a mountain of a problem. And no group alone is going to be able to solve it. So I want to make sure that people knew that we are screening for that. Having said that it is so difficult, one, with environmental law to set up shelters, two, with the crazy criminal laws that they're doing. And look, when they pass that, they have the best intentions. Unfortunately, they can't anticipate the ripple effect of what they do. We didn't want to be filling our jails with people that steal a loaf of bread. And now we have people, you can see on YouTube, going through Walmart with a calculator, making sure they're just under $9.50. And they have their kids grabbing all the stuff, and they're calculating it, and they know that nothing will be enforced. But we can't let that as an excuse not to do our jobs. We have to overcome these issues, not succumb to them. Yeah, I get it's hard. In the Boise decision, we have to have a place to send somebody in order to enforce the law. Okay, let's create those places, and let's keep doing our job, because you shouldn't live like this, nor should they. Now, I will tell you, I was over at Magnolia, and Under Sheriff Kelly Martinez has just been a gem to work with. She's really educated me, and I don't have a police chief that is good as our police chief here in El Cajon. However, the Under Sheriff fulfilled, because our sheriff stepped down, so she was filling in for him. And I said, all these businesses have videos, and they have videos of people having crazy sex in the middle of Magnolia, and crimes, people being robbed. And I said, can you use that to prosecute them? And she said, nope. The law says I have to witness it personally. To what end? To what end? Now, I'm just going to ask you, if you were out there, disrobed, doing something sexual, do you think that you'd end up on a pedophile list? Of course you would. Of course you would. There shouldn't be two standards of justice. It should be one standard of justice for all of us. And so what we have to do is, they're giving us a path. The path is uphill, but it's still a path. And I think having a meeting like this where we can work together and we are being transparent in telling you what we're doing so you can measure whether we're effective or not is crucial to our success.
Did anybody else want to?
Two-justice system goes all the way up to Washington.
Sure. Does anybody else want to address the global question of hands being tied by feds and state? I mean, I think you got the message. When I go on Next Door Neighborhood, I'll sigh when I go on Next Door Neighborhood. But I mean, the folks on Next Door Neighborhood are just, they think, all of these problems can just be addressed and no one's even trying to do anything. But unfortunately, I think the folks that show up to an event like this today are probably, not the type. You may be commenting on Next Door Neighborhood, but we're trying to inform people. You need to be ambassadors in your community when it comes to misperceptions about what we can and can't do, and I think that's an important part of this discussion. So, before we move into, and it looks like, are there more questions coming from the audience? Because I saw like 3 at this point. Because I'm trying to gauge how much time we'll need, but I want to make sure we do have enough time for.
Barry, may I just add one thing? Hit me.
No, you can't. But go ahead.
So I paid for this mic. So I think it's important to know, when I became supervisor, we reach out to all the mayors in my district and all the city managers, and we have meetings as important stuff is coming before the Board of Supes, because it impacts all of you. And we've had great participation with the cities working with me. But we got to work as a team in East County. Nobody cares more about East County than us. So, but I wanted to make sure you knew that we were communicating.
All right. Well, we hope today is the beginning of more communications too. So, Steve, go ahead. I do want to make sure we start getting into ideas people have to better collaborate between the county and the city, because that's part of our goal today, right?
I do have ideas.
Good.
That'd be great. I think you would ask us to come up with ideas. I'll tell you one idea that I'm hearing is, I think it would be great if the county and the city manager from each of the 18 cities were a committee to talk about homelessness. I don't know if it exists today. I hear about the Regional Task Force for Homelessness. I've attended it. I'm aware that there's service agencies and helpers and things, but we're talking about the city managers from each city plus representatives of the county. I think that would be helpful. I think that should be discussed as an option. Hearing the screening going on in the motels, I think that is great. Another ask I would have as part of that program is we don't know what happens where they go when they fall out of the program. And I've talked to some hotel owners. Where do these people go when they fall out of the program? We know that the contract requires the contractor to record the place, date, and time where this person got picked up. But there is no part of the contract that I can find, including the 6 amendments, that says what happens when they fall out of the program. Do they need to be returned to the community from which they came? Because I can tell, we know not all of these people are inside of El Cajon. Some are. But those that aren't, can we return them to the community from which they came? Because we carry a heavy burden by ourselves quite a bit. We know already we bring in people from other cities into some of the shelters we have. That's the compassion part of us. But you, the people, are saying, where's the correction part? For those that choose not to go in the shelter and they fall out of this program, are they staying on the streets of El Cajon? Where are they going? So one of my asks is, can we make sure that once you come into that program, if you fall out of the program, you must be returned to the community from which you came? I think the people of El Cajon would like that. Supervisor Anderson has already picked up the torch about these tiny homes with Supervisor Vargas. They've agreed to move forward on this. Graham mentioned it earlier. It's 6 tiny homes on the property of Meridian Baptist Church. I did spend some time helping build those because they're beautiful. The cabins, they're 12 by 12. They have electricity, a heater. They're 8 by 12 sleeping area with a bunk, electricity for a computer, cell phone. There's a cabin there where Home Start comes into the cabin and provides services on site because they know where the people are. This is a great model that could be replicated in hundreds of places across the county. And Supervisor Anderson has said, let's find some sites where we could do this. So I appreciate that. The care court, one of my concerns is that the motels would be used as a transitional housing for the care court. And we need to make sure, look, all of us would say in a perfect world, if the voucher recipients didn't need a call for police, if they went through the program and 100% of them got into permanent housing, we would all say, that's great. That's a working program. But the part that doesn't work, the 70% that don't go through the program, what are we going to do? Where are we going to address that? Return to the pickup point is where I'm saying. So my 3 asks to, let's have a county city committee. Let's continue to push this tiny home thing, and let's return people to the pickup point who fall out of the program in El Cajon.
Okay, I know other people are going to have any other ideas. I want to make sure you know, because now the questions are starting to pile in. I knew it was going to happen. So first of all, the staff here from Supervisor Anderson's office is capturing all the ideas that come up, and all of the questions come in, whether you get it addressed today or not, or whether you have a one-on-one conversation. Either way, all of these questions are being submitted to both the city and the county. So if you do want to put your name and your email address, your address on the back, then I assume you'll get a response too. Some of you noticed I noticed haven't, and you may not then be able to hear a response. So just think about that. If you want to come up here and get your question and add your information, you can. Okay? Does that address it? Phil, you got something?
No.
You sure? On the question of ideas. Ideas. Any ideas you have? Any ideas you have about how the county and the city can better work together, collaborate on these issues?
Thank you. I think Councilman Goebel's ideas were fantastic. One of them, which was screening, but Supervisor Anderson said that's already happening, so that's fantastic. In the respect that if we have people with felony warrants using of resources for people in need, then we got to stop that right away. So I applaud the county for doing that. All right, the other idea that I gave to our city manager was to apply for the county grant on homelessness, and I believe the application is going through. So we are applying for that county grant on homelessness, and thank you for Supervisor Anderson for giving us the information on that, so we can apply for that. I think it's a great thing. Other ideas is we're working with hotel and motel owners to rehab their facilities. Councilman Goebel and I sat down with hotel owners, and we have a program here in the city of El Cajon that works with hotel motel owners to rehab them. And Graham, I don't know if off the top of your head you know how many hotel or motels we've had go through that program, but once they go through the program, they go from dozens and dozens of calls for service, which is 911 calls, down to virtually 0 calls. So we are extending the carrot, so to speak, to these hotel motel owners and saying, listen, we have a program to help you come in and rehab your hotel motel, so it's an attractive asset to not only the city but to potential clients, and it's a benefit to the region as well. So that's something that we're working on as well.
There's a couple things that we could be doing, and I talked to some of the city council members about this. First of all, we're not the only voucher system operating in El Cajon. So when you hear that there are people who have warrants, it's not our folks. When you're hearing that that there's no wraparound services or caseworker, that's not our program. I can't speak to the other programs, but I know the city of San Diego has a program there. I know the city of La Mesa has a program there. I know that El Cajon has their own program there. And when I look through the contract of our provider and your provider, the contract's identical, almost. They put things a little different, but it's the same. So when Councilman Goebel, you're asking for us to hit a standard, we're actually matching your standard. Now, I will tell you that when we did the point in time, it changes all the time, but when we did the point in time, it was 64% of the people that we placed were from the city of El Cajon. So when you say, well, where should they be returned? Well, we got them in the city of El Cajon. 92% of them were from East County. So when you look at Magnolia, 102 of those vouchers came from Magnolia. So if you say return them, I'm going to return them right to Magnolia. So when you say that, now look, most people didn't get homeless because they made a good decision. They made a poor decision about trying a drug. They made a poor decision about drinks. They made a poor decision in some aspect of their life unless they had a mental health issue. So when we're talking about this, the fact that we have a 30% success rate is outstanding. I thought when I asked staff, well, how much success do we get? I would have been happy with 10%. Now, of course, I want to get to 100%, but let's think about in our own personal life. Do we know an alcoholic? Because I know several. And at one point in their life, they lost their family, they lost their job, they lost their house. Then they got in the wagon and they rebuilt their life, and maybe they fell off the wagon again. So these people are up against all odds. So if we're looking for 100%, we're always going to be disappointed. But the fact is they signed a contract and said, I wanted to change my life. So we have to give them every opportunity and take them at their words. Now, I'll say another part to crime aspect. Are there criminals among the homeless? Of course. But if I was a criminal and I wanted to prey on somebody, I would prey on the weakest members of society because they can't fight back. So when you go into a homeless encampment, of course there's going to be some criminal element because they want to prey on the homeless. And they are homeless. So I just want to make sure that when we're thinking about this, we're thinking about all the spokes on the wheel, that they all lead to this hub, and we have to provide something for everybody. If we take the voucher system away until we get those shelters built, I can do nothing for Magnolia or Graves. We shut down Graves. We got a call. There were 5 people there. We got out there right away. Right now, El Cajon Ford reached out to us because behind their facility they have some, but we're checking to see if it's county land. I believe it's going to be Caltrans. That's the other thing. The county can only enforce in the county, the city can only enforce in the city, and the state has to enforce on Caltrans land. But we're communicating about it. Councilmember Mitchell had reached out to me and said, hey, can you help us on 2nd Street, and I forgot what the cross street was, and we looked into it, and I said, that's Caltrans, it's not us. But then I told her, hey, I got this other issue, and let's talk about that, because if it's city property, I'm going to need your help. This is all really difficult. It's not easy. It's not a light switch. You can just turn it on and turn it off. It's very, very complicated, and what seems straightforward, most of the time is illegal. You all are working hard, and you're doing a great job, and I want to be a better partner. But it was a little shocking when Bonta, our Attorney General, sent you all a letter because they believed that you were violating the law. And so that's what we're up against. We've got the state watching us, and we better be dotting our I's and crossing our T's if we want to move forward to solve this in a meaningful way. And my personal commitment is to you all, because I'm always the greatest champion of El Cajon. No city has bared the brunt of this issue greater than you have. And I was out there at the grand opening of the mini homes, and people think, well, it's just a mini home. I'm sure you're familiar with the story of the starfish, right? The young boys, 1,000 starfish on the beach, and he's throwing them in one at a time. And the old man comes up to him and says, hey kid, there's 10,000 of these. How in the heck are you going to change anything? And he picks up a starfish, he throws it in the water, and he goes, that one liked it. You know what? Those 9 homes are for pregnant women. We're getting them off the street. We're creating a community where their children are going to have a future. We got to be thinking about how the message we're going to send to our kids and the society we want to be part of. And at the same token, we have every right to expect the homeless to work with us, not against us. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, Graham, and then we want to try. You may want to respond, but at the same time, we want to make sure we're focused on how we can work together, right? So if ideas haven't come up, we want to do that.
But I do have an idea. Doggone it, I didn't write it down. I'll do it really fast.
Do it really
just
fast.
For the record,
do it really fast.
There's 4 opinions in mine, so I should get a little extra time. So one of the things that I had suggested, and I'd like the city to look at it, is we have special districts for beautifying areas in business areas. Why don't you come up with an ordinance that creates a special district for the hotels that take vouchers, and we pay $145 per room with the voucher, charge them $20 or $10 per room. We have 121 vouchers in the city right now. That'd be $1,000 a day or more. That would pay for an officer to be on call for the 14 calls you had last month, according to your press release. You would have somebody who would be Johnny on the spot to address those issues so that it isn't costing the city money, and the hotels would still have the opportunity, and I'd still have the ability, to turn around. And by the way, when you go to the homeless...
You said it was going to be quick.
I am. This is fast for me. So when you go to the people and you offer them a voucher, they can choose where they go. If they say, well, we don't want to go there, these hotel vouchers, the person knows they're going to El Cajon. We have 18 hotels that participate in our voucher system. We have one in Escondido. We have several around. They could say, we want to go to Escondido, and then they wouldn't be placed in El Cajon. The reason why they're coming to El Cajon is they identify as El Cajon as being their home. That's why it is. So if I'm living on the cusp of Greenfield, outside the city limits, and I say I want to go to El Cajon, I don't want to go to Chula Vista, what are we supposed to do? Say, no, you can't do that. We are working with only a carrot. There is no stick in this process, and you all know that. So thank you.
Graham, I know you want to respond to that. And then we want to quickly move to some Q&A from the audience, because we're going to be running over. An elected official walked in that I saw, Andrew Hayes, who's on the Lakeside Union School District Board. Thanks for stopping by. He also works for Senator Brian Jones. The reason I bring that up is because as we sit here and beat up the state, maybe someone may ask, well, why didn't you invite the state to the table? But yeah. Well, no, we won't do that. But no, my guess is, I'm just going to speak, without asking Andrew or Senator Brian Jones. My guess is the frustrations you hear about hands being tied, and some of that coming from the state. My guess is the state senator would agree with those frustrations. So, Graham,
I agree. And, We actually are working with some folks in Sacramento to look at some laws at the state level that would allow us to apply some fees towards homeless vouchered motel rooms so we could get some funding. But I thought it's important for the public to recognize the data, and I think data is important. And I know that the county put out some data during the whole initial debacle, I'll call it that, about 64% being from the city of El Cajon. And I don't know where that data came from, but county staff and I have been in conversation, and I received an email on just October 12th. It was a list of everybody that was currently in a vouchered program in El Cajon on October 10th. So this is pretty recent data. And one of the questions was asked, where were you most living on the street? There was 98 people that were in the voucher program. I'll just tell you where they're coming from. 1 was from Escondido, 2 from Santee, 1 from Mexico, 1 from Bonita, 1 from the city of El Cajon, 94 from unincorporated San Diego County. That includes, and a lot of that is folks that were in the North Magnolia encampment, right? So that's almost El Cajon. But my concern is that there were 16 from Lakeside, but 23 from Spring Valley, which is not even in the Supervisor Anderson's district. So another supervisor is dumping folks in his own district, and that's a concern to me. When Lemon Grove and La Mesa both have motels, that could help take the Spring Valley folks. So that's our concern. Our concern has always been not the voucher program itself, because we know it works, we use it, but it's just sort of this unfairness of dumping or highly concentrating folks, which we also think is a violation of state law and federal law as well, of concentrating people in areas. And so we're working actually on our own complaint with the state of California about that. So I think numbers are important. I don't want to get back and forth in numbers, and I don't know where the supervisor got his numbers from, but this is numbers straight from county staff.
So, based on some of the conversation I heard today, I got an idea. An idea of maybe working better together is moving forward. When you're going back and forth with that data, let's pin down which voucher program it is, because
that was county data. That was county AFQUIS.
Okay. So anyway, I think maybe what I'd say is, outside of a public forum like this, is regular meetings, staff, electeds, going forward about. There's obviously a difference of opinion here. So where is it coming from? Okay. So that's all I'll say. We're going to go to Q&A unless someone feels like they need to weigh in on something that we've kind of rubbed on or touched. Okay, perfect. Okay, first question. With the number of homeless growing faster than services, how do we scale these programs up? Do we need more housing, more shelters, other? That's a big open-ended question, and I know any one of you could answer that for the next 15 minutes and we'd be out of time. So just real succinctly, Supervisor Anderson, I think you've addressed some of that in the fact you're pursuing shelters, but what else?
Well, I had a town hall in Lakeside to address getting a shelter there. As we're moving forward, the point in time count said there were, I believe, 355 or 455 people living in the riverbeds. And as the riverbeds are being cleaned out to create hiking trails, those folks are going to be coming into our community. So when I was in Lakeside, we had a room about this size, 350 people were there, another 800 or so on Facebook Live. We're Facebooking Live today too. And they said all their homeless were from El Cajon. And I told them, I said, look, if they're living in the riverbed, they're your homeless. I don't care where they were born and raised, they're your homeless. And I think that if we get so caught up with whether a person's 5 feet outside of our city or 5 feet into the county or out of the county, we're going to lose track. This is a regional problem. We need to be addressing it in a regional way. And remember, when you say that we're dumping, people opt in. No one's forcing anybody to do anything. We can't force hotels to accept homeless. they say that we have these rooms available, and we fill those rooms. So I think when you use terminology,
You guys send them.
when you use terminology,
You're lying because I bought my home there 4 years ago, and I went to your lakeside meeting and I talked to you and your little assistant.
So if you want to, listen.
Yeah,
So if anybody,
everything. There's no enforcement, nobody's in control, and the owner just...
you're gonna get an opportunity after the meeting when other people need to get.
I'll show you.
Okay, you have an opportunity.
And you said you
Sir, you have an opportunity after the meeting.
Well, you're gonna arrest me because I'm Mexican?
No, but you know what? I'm not gonna arrest you. The police chief is here, but I have my San Diego County Sheriff Junior Deputy badge.
Oh, I mean, obviously you can't arrest nobody, so I can do whatever the fuck I want, right? You can't arrest nobody. You said it yourself.
We'd ask you to be.
But I'm saying everything says you're lying, and there's no enforcement. You're dumping them. I got pictures, and I talked to them, and they tell me you're dumping them. I live there. I bought a home there. It's freaking 4 years ago.
Supervisor Anderson, you don't need to respond. I want to move on with constructive.
I'm telling you the truth. So that's cool. You can lie here, and everybody. You can lie here.
Sir, we'd ask you to. We'd ask you.
I'm done. Go ahead.
I know the way sometimes he handles it.
No, that's fine.
And I'm going to tell you, this is East County. This is not the city of San Diego. Let's be mature about what we're doing here today, okay? Answer the question.
so we're going to get you a card. We have homeless task force members here. You can talk to them directly. Could somebody bring a card over from the homeless task force?
I got a card.
Okay.
Let's not forget the question. Supervisor, you answered the question. Can we go to other people?
As soon as I sit down.
All right. How do we scale these programs up?
You know,
Now, go ahead. Steve.
I'm going to come back to El Cajon offers a variety of programs, from a way back home with the Salvation Army to the 6 tiny homes to the ECTLC project. We've got all sorts of sampling things. One of the difficulties we find is other communities don't want to adopt this because they say, not in my backyard. That's the reality. And we know that some of these communities send them to El Cajon because we do embrace with compassion. We do embrace with correction also. But we need all these communities to step up somehow and be part of the solution. Every community. It's just, we need everybody to provide more housing, more safe parking, more travel solutions through Salvation Army, more tiny villages across the city or county. We need more people to step up and say, we'll participate in the solution.
Yeah, scaling is difficult because it involves money. And government money doesn't move fast, it moves slow. I mean, that's just the reality of government. It's just so slow. So, what's that? Yeah, you grind through it. And this funding that we get comes from the federal government, then it goes to the state, then it goes to the county, then it goes to the city. So increase in funding is naturally going to be a slow process. It's never great, and by the time the money gets down to small cities, it's barely anything. But like I said, buy-in from other, like Councilman Goebel said, buy-in from other cities. We can affect small change and show that these beta programs work. These small tiny homes, they work, they're successful, there's people going through them. And the wave, the influx of homelessness, just because there's a wave doesn't mean these programs aren't effective. What we have done here in the El Cajon, city of El Cajon, is tried to say, look at these programs we're doing, they're successful, we've shown proof that they're successful, let's have these other cities adopt them. And so that's what we're doing and talking to other cities.
It's one of the reasons we applied for the grant from the county to build a shelter that can accommodate between 50 and 100 individuals. For an East County shelter, it won't be an El Cajon shelter. So if we get that funding, hopefully it's enough. Then we can. That's a real step, right? But we need, as Councilmember Goebel said, we need every city to do exactly that same thing, and not just one city.
And I actually don't know if the city is comfortable addressing this, but I know there was some early discussion, a month or so ago, whatever, 3 weeks, 5 weeks ago, about whether the city could effectively control the number of vouchers as a percentage of the number of rooms in a motel or hotel. And I think the state has kind of preempted that discussion too. So I don't know if you want to address it. I just kind of did. So it's another way hands are being tied, right?
I'm more concerned about community safety than I am about the percentage of vouchers in the motels. If they're all behaving themselves, let's help them out. But if there's crime happening as a result in those motels, and there is, and we were called to, we didn't patrol the hallways, we were called to the properties from property operators, and we had 2 3-day operations resulting in over 40 arrests. I'm okay if you're behaving yourself. Come from a voucher from the city of San Diego. Come from the city of La Mesa. We're ready to help. But if you want to cause problems for the community and create an unsafe environment for the rest of the voucher recipients who are trying to better their lives, or the community around that motel, then we have a problem. This is about community safety, not about the percentage of rooms.
Fair enough. Chief, you've been quiet. You want to say anything? I know you're, you don't consider yourself elected official or a bureaucrat because you're law enforcement, and I appreciate that. So as we kind of start to get down to the end, because I really think we need to probably end in 10 or 15 minutes here. But again, folks are going to stick around to have one-on-one conversation with you. I know this gentleman wants it.
Very hot. I'm David Thistle, folks. I ran for president of the United States twice.
Wait, David.
I've been dealing with this since 2012.
David, sit down, please.
I don't want to cut this short, but listen, I want to cut this short because I have to go check on my canine.
David.
I have an idea for you folks, so you stop cutting the tree down one leaf at a time.
Why don't you write it down?
I did.
Okay, then we have it.
It's called New Hampshire Title 12, Chapter 165.5. It has to do with veterans that are homeless. Gentlemen over here is upset.
Hey, David, we want to get to the questions that have been submitted in writing, so we want to do that. If you submitted it, as I said at the beginning, we're not going to get to everyone. What we're going to do is everyone's going to get a response from these folks if you've included your address. So here's a really good question, because this achieves one of our goals today. We wanted to inform the public. We also wanted to inform the public about what they can do to help. And the reason this question is important is because I believe Supervisor Anderson, based on what he's hearing, ideas, based on questions from the public, a continued dialogue with the public, he may want to carry some things back to the Board of Supervisors. These 2 council members and the city manager may want to carry some ideas back to the city council. So the question is, what can I do to help? Well, I know some of it's any ideas they have, but it's also anything you're taking back to your colleagues. You may want the public to kind of weigh in on and advocate for. That's part of it. But answer the question. Don't let me answer the question for you. What can the public do to help?
Bonnie, stand up.
Get the microphone, Graham. I introduced Bonnie Baranoff before East County Homeless Task Force.
So Bonnie currently is our representative. She runs the East County Homeless Task Force, and her goal is to come up with ideas and to collaborate with the cities. We rely on her to collaborate. So if you have ideas, talk to Bonnie. She desperately wants people to volunteer and help on the organization. So get in touch with her. She'll stick around and she'll take information.
Mike, you want to try that one? What can the public do to help? Anybody?
Where's the next question?
Does anybody else want to address it? Okay, fine.
I'm happy to.
Go ahead, briefly.
When they speak, you don't say briefly. When I speak, you say briefly. It's only one of me. 2 of the things that are really helpful is trying to locate shelter. Trying to locate shelter locations is really hard. And if you know of an area where a shelter would fit, please forward it to our office. We'll be happy to vet it to make sure that it meets all the criteria, but I need shelter locations throughout my district. The second thing is, we have people already doing this, but we can have more. When you see a homeless encampment starting, let me know right away. On Graves, we had, I think, 3 or 5 encampment, and within a week the county was on it, and we were able to shut it down before it got full-fledged. And then the last thing is, I want to thank the city for applying for the county grant. You know, as part of the MOU, and as part of my philosophy of not allowing cities to go it alone, we put $10 million together, allowing cities to apply for the $10 million to increase shelter beds. And I have no idea what your plan is, because the county won't tell me until they select the winners. But I just want to thank you for submitting. No other city in my district applied for that grant. And I think it's important to know the people that are working really hard to provide solutions. So thank you.
I heard someone yell out of the audience a question, and that was, where's Supervisor Fletcher? Well, Supervisor Anderson didn't invite him because it's not his district, so, you know.
If you're a City of El Cajon resident, we want you to download the City of El Cajon app. This allows you to submit any issues or any problem within 3 clicks of your phone, and we are able to track how quickly those issues get resolved, including encampments that, you know, if they're building 2-story encampments on the public right-of-way or at a park. So please download the City of El Cajon app, and it allows us to track how quickly the city is getting to issues. It's our City of El Cajon website, but there's an app that you can download from the App Store or the Google Play Store.
And what's the app called? So
it's called City of El Cajon.
Okay. So that's
made it really simple.
There's an actual app for that, okay? This one's a real brief one, but I think it may help, you know, people understand how the city is dealing with it. Is El Cajon a sanctuary city? What's the definition? You said do our definitions, right?
Yeah, let's define our terms. Yeah.
A sanctuary city, I believe, is. Chief, can you help me with that? All right. Okay. Great. We don't know how to answer it. But whoever asked that, let's get with the city afterwards, and I think you can define it for them, and we'll have better understanding. Here's a good one. Steve, I don't know if you know this or anybody knows this. What is the cost of each tiny home?
$10,000 for one of those little tiny homes, because it was built with all voluntary labor. There's not a single nail in there. It's all screws. Trust me, I've put in a lot of those things. They can be picked up, take apart like an IKEA kit. They were designed by an IKEA designer, so they're a kit. They can pick up and move. $10,000 for a beautiful home with electricity and heat and insulation.
It's, you know, and that's why they're called tiny homes. Have you ever bought a piece of IKEA furniture and you got it home and it's a lot smaller than you thought? That's why they're called tiny homes. Okay, is the city or county, both then, contacting local churches to ask or learn how they might be of service? I know there's a good answer to this one, and I think you probably all want to address it.
So one of our solutions is actually interfaith housing shelter. So we actually work with a lot of local churches where there's a shelter that rotates for 2 weeks at a time at different churches. Exactly right. So we rely on that. If your church, or if you go to a church or knows of a church that would like to get involved, they desperately need more shelter space and more churches participating. So that's a great way. So if you know of someone, get a hold of me and we can connect them with the network.
The homes that Steve built are on the church parking lot. And when I saw that, I thought, the county moves so slowly. They're hardworking people. They're doing the best they can. But with the law, it's just stacked against us. And I don't want to wait that long. So I put in a board letter. Staff's going to be coming back with what the criteria the county needs for us to move forward and partner with churches on private land. So if we move that stuff to private land, we don't have to meet some of the same environmental issues. And as a result, I hope to bring more cabins online as quickly as possible.
Great. I think it's been addressed, right? Here's a good one. It's more a comment than anything, but I am sure that there will be many great suggestions and ideas presented today. My question would be, how are the ideas going to be followed up on? A follow-up meeting would be a great idea. And then again, follow-up meeting with a big square around it. So, okay, we're not even going to ask the question. So some people have statements. So many questions, I don't know how we're going to get, how we would possibly get them to them all, and we're at about 3:40 now. So I'm going to ask you, again, lots of addresses on the back. You'll get a response. Yes. Go ahead. Why don't you, I'm going to start in the middle, then go this way, and then go that way. How's that? About just a kind of closing comment, anything you want to say you learned today, any other closing comments you want to make, and then we're going to wrap it up, and folks will stay to talk to the public if they so choose. Okay?
I'm okay. Keep going till say 4 o'clock. I think are there more questions that could be answered?
Oh, well, there's a lot of questions. Everybody good?
I would rather have questions and hear me pontificate with closing comments. Yes.
Yeah, I think you want to hear questions and answers more than us.
Yeah.
Is there a way that these questions and answers could be posted on the El Cajon website? So that then we know that everybody's has been answered, because we're going to be kind of short with time. We know one question could take a while to answer. Is that feasible?
Yeah. If the supervisor's office can share with us, we will post it on our website.
Yeah. Is that right?
If you want an answer, you need to come back up and make sure your email address and name's on it.
But what we're saying, there's so many good
Some people
questions,
didn't do it.
we're not going to have the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why we had to put it on there.
Yeah,
Because
that's no
they didn't want anybody
problem.
to leave without an answer.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
no
But what about
problem.
all the rest of us?
I
Thank you.
you'll make sure that we get the questions as well, and you'll get answers from either the county or the city or both.
Thanks, Phil. Count on you.
Okay, great. More a statement, but it's a good one. And so if you want to try to answer, you can, but it's more a statement. My charter school has 2 locations that are directly impacted by the increase in homelessness in El Cajon: stolen property, broken fences, gates, screens, copper wiring, etc., etc. There seems to be no solutions, and so on and so forth. So again, it's a statement. Before I turned it over, I guessed who asked it, because I saw her in the audience. Can I mention you? Oh, maybe she's not here anymore. I won't mention her unless I have approval. Does anybody want to try to take that one on, other than you're aware? Okay. Someone else asking for a follow-up meeting? Okay. Okay, this is very specific. I have 7 years of sobriety. Many of us in recovery have concerns about the Housing First model. Do you find that the Rule 15A in the RHAP contract is helping in the sobriety efforts of those being housed? Does anybody know what that is and would like to take it on?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay, all right. So obviously we will get back to you in writing.
I can comment on Housing First really quickly. Very briefly, this is my own opinion. I don't believe that strictly Housing First without wraparound services is good. It's the most incompassionate thing you can do to a person. You're basically saying, get out of my sight, get into a hotel or a room or whatever, and we're not helping you get through your drug addiction, your mental health, your all the things that brought you to that point. So the strictly Housing First without any kind of help is the most incompassionate thing you could ever do with regard to a policy. It makes me sick that we just want to get these people out of our sight. People need to be helped out of their mental, their emotional, and their spiritual poverty before they can lift themselves out of their physical poverty.
Easy one. Where will the crisis stabilization unit be located?
At the county assessor's office in El Cajon. We're converting that right now. We were hoping to have it online now, but I think it's going to be another 6 months. But it's going to make a world of difference. In North County, we have one running, and it's a huge, huge success.
And by the way, when he says it's the former county assessor's office, not the current one, but that's what? Magnolia and Magnolia and Douglas, across from the chamber, across from the East County Chamber's office. Okay, this is more a general question about what about people concerned with homelessness talking to the people on the street. I kind of think that's been addressed. I mean, you talked about the number of services every day at Magnolia. Does the city have any kind of program where you're going out on the street and talking to people on the street? Graham, you want to take that? So just so people understand?
Yeah, certainly. We go out, not only our law enforcement team, we have folks in our law enforcement team specifically that does that. And they're not there to enforce the law, they're there to offer services. And we go with our partners and offer services. We actually meet, I think it's every Friday. We have a place where people can come. We can fast track DMV IDs. So if you don't have an ID, by the way, it's hard to survive in America without an ID. So we'll fast track IDs and help people get on their way. So we have a lot of contact. Our police officers that do this, they know. I went on a ride along with them talking to folks that were living in the channel. They knew every minute detail about these people's lives. They knew how they were feeling 3 days ago. They know these folks. I know the HEART team has the exact same situation. They know these people, and we know that if we have continual contact, at some point someone's going to say, I want to get off the street today, and that's when we can take that opportunity.
Barry, I'd like to. Go ahead.
The city gets 210,000 calls a year to the police dispatch for service. They're able to respond to 70,000 of those. 70,000 of 210,000. Of the 70,000, 7,000 are related to homelessness. 1 in 10 calls they respond to is related somehow to homelessness. They know the people on the streets of El Cajon, continually offer them help. Those that want it, take it. Those that don't, I think that might be some of the issue.
There are a lot of nonprofits with volunteers too, in addition. A few years ago, before I was elected, I volunteered at ECTLC, East County Transitional Living Center. They would have teams that would drive out in the morning and ask people if they would like help, if they needed shelter, and then drive them to the shelter. So I know there's a lot of teams out there doing it because I was one of the volunteers.
Yeah, and I saw Ivan Angular here. Is Ivan still here? There he is. Stand up. Ivan is the
rock star.
Yeah, he's with ECTLC, and I'm not parsing words here when I say this is a model for the entire country. The program that they are running here in El Cajon, I think they deserve all the thanks in the world. So thank you, Ivan, for the work that you do.
By the way, sometimes when I moderate events, I tell people, they can text me questions. So my phone just went on, and I thought, someone in the audience has my number, and I pull it up, and I'm thinking it's going to be something serious, and it says, "Can you please stop and grab chocolate sauce for ice cream, also whipped cream?" So goes well with Padres, right? Okay, is the county willing to provide zoning variances for using emergency sleeping cabins as a housing solution? Well, this is county, but I'm going to have you both ask. How's that? Or both answers.
Well, we're doing it. We're doing it
Okay.
right now. Supervisor Vargas and I wrote a letter. The way the county works is you write a letter, and then we all vote on it. And we wrote a letter on that. The other thing I neglected to mention is the fastest rising number of homelessness is seniors, or 55 and older, with a peak at 65. And one of the things that I read and put a board letter in is to create senior shallow rent subsidies. See, the studies have shown that $500 could keep them in their homes. They don't have mental health issues. They don't have addiction issues. Can you imagine putting your grandparents out on the street? It wouldn't take long before they would have those issues. And then having to decide between health care and staying in your apartment is a big deal. So the county has a pilot program that we're moved forward with that was my board letter to see if it works. Because if we can avoid homelessness, that's as good as getting people off the street. We don't need to be increasing the numbers with our seniors.
What are you calling it?
Graham, it was addressed to the county, but someone may have just meant government, right? About variances for...
Well, El Cajon gave a zoning variance for Meridian Baptist Church to allow the operation of these 6 tiny homes over the next, I think, through the end of 2023. But the staff is so brilliant that at the same time they approved that site, they pre-approved 12 other sites in the city to allow this. So they're ready to go if they want to step up.
Great. And that also, that also answers the question about where the tiny homes are. You just answered it, Meridian Baptist Church. So a partnership with churches. Is there a website, or maybe it's the app, for trash pickup near homeless area or other hot spots. This is specifically Chase Avenue ramp, towards 8 West Highway, but we don't have to be that specific.
Yeah,
Will the app
will work. You can always call the city of El Cajon, but like I said before, we really want to track that data so we can show where these hotspots are and do what we need to do on the back end to track it. If it's in the county, we'll just reach out to Supervisor Anderson's office and relegate it to their staff.
What about, this is a very general one. I think you've all kind of touched on it in some regard, but it's really about helping the percentage of homeless people who are able to, once again, become self-supporting members of the community. So job resources, access to clean clothes and transportation, job interviews, drug treatment programs, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's all going on. Do you want to address any of that specifically? Okay.
That's what we refer to when we say wraparound services.
Sure. So wraparound services means just that. Do homeless who refuse to enter a program get introduced to other resources? I think you've touched on that too. It's a difficult one, right? Oh, okay. Here, this is getting in a little bit different angle. How many children and pets are with homeless people in El Cajon? Well, I don't know if you can put a number on it, but what is being done to be sure they're cared for too? How does that work? People with pets, with animals. Does anybody?
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, it's
It is a huge challenge. We actually explored a program in El Cajon where we would actually let's say a homeless individual or an individual experiencing homelessness needed a doctor's appointment or a job interview or to get their ID, but they have a pet. And the thing that was keeping them from doing that was being separated from their pet. We actually explored a way that we could have them sort of drop the pet off at our animal shelter for sort of dog care service for up to 2 weeks so they could get the help. The challenge is that the state of California has a law that says local governments cannot take a pet unless they're relinquished. So no individual is going to relinquish their animal to a government. And so that is a challenge that we have had. I think this is a great area for nonprofit space. This is a wonderful idea if you had a nonprofit idea to take pets in temporarily for homeless individuals.
Okay, so in case you didn't hear that,
The Humane Society has a program for that?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. With regards to children, voucher programs, obviously you can be on a voucher with children. And then ECTLC, we just approved their, so what was happening is we had these entire rooms, individual rooms, and that was all that was there at ECTLC. What we did at the City of El Cajon is fast-track dormitories for homeless individuals to be able to be housed. So then therefore those rooms can be made for families. And we're at capacity, right, Ivan, for the familial rooms? So and those dorms made room for the families to be in. For 37 families.
Did everybody hear that? Okay, good. This is more about the event today, but why can't we ask questions in front of you today? So on and so forth. It's interesting that they're typed as if someone walked in and was planning on asking that before they walked in. You know what? As recently as 3 days ago, we were literally discussing whether there's going to be time for Q&A at all. Don't think any of these events start with, we're going to keep the public from asking questions. We were looking at the number of responses and trying to figure out, and I was talking to Supervisor Anderson's office, and I was talking to the city manager about what it looks like. So please don't think, anything's pre-planned. We're trying to be flexible. We're trying to get as many questions in as possible. So once again, maybe the beginning of more dialogue where there'll be more public participation. So please look at it that way, okay?
We put this together 4 weeks ago. I didn't want to have a dialogue through press conferences. I thought it was important to have the dialogue in front of you. We invited the city of El Cajon. We invited every city council member, the mayor. We invited everybody, and we tried to give them enough time that they could avoid the Brown Act by noticing it. They chose not to, and that's okay, because chances are they've got other things. I didn't ask them if they were free today, but I'm glad all these folks showed up. because only being in the room together are we going to solve this problem. So I thank you again for participating today.
Oh, this is a really good question. But it doesn't say who it's addressed to, so are you running for Congress? Graham, are you running for Congress? I am. Oh, okay. You know, I'm definitely not, so Mike, you want to take that one? Anybody else? Okay, great, all right. I'm being a little facetious, all right. Okay, we're actually getting through some of these now. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of duplicate now. Let's see, there's some kind of floating down here. Let's see.
5 minutes.
Yeah. Thanks for being my timekeeper there. This is very specific. Las Cochas, not El Cajon, but Las Cochas South, corner of Camino Cañada and East County Drive. Can we look into this homeless encampment? Can we look into it? Of course. So, you know, if the supervisor's office or county didn't know, now they know. So thank you.
Did they send their name?
Yes.
Perfect. I'll take it.
Okay.
We'll do it now.
Once the homeless fell out of shelters, where did they go? Oh, by the way, let me ask this one, because I've seen a theme here, but no one asked it specifically. So where are we looking at shelter space, actual shelter space? These shelters that are because of environmental everything, it takes a while to get. Where are we looking at locations?
Well, we had a series of meetings over the last year in Lakeside. I believe we had 11 or 13 meetings where we asked the community where would they like to site the shelters. Then we had a location that made great sense, and I had we were only getting about 20 complaints a week, and I was expecting to get 100 a day. So we had a big town hall. That's when everybody showed up to tell us that they hate the location. And then that gave me an opportunity, though, to walk them through how this works. I think everybody in this room learned something about how difficult it is to work with the homeless because of all the state laws and all the challenges we face. So I'm trying to put one in Alpine. I'm trying to put one in Lakeside. In every community in my district, I want to put a shelter. We need to have a place for people who want help to get help, and they have to identify with that community because they're not going to choose a community they're not comfortable with. They're not going to go to Oceanside if they're in Lakeside or Alpine. The second thing is we can't enforce the law if we don't have a shelter to offer them. That would be Nathan Fletcher's district.
So maybe to lay the groundwork, areas for shelter space are limited to a couple different things. It's government land, or county-owned, city-owned land, or it's private organizations or people offering and donating their land for it to be built, or you have to purchase the land. And how many of you know this is the most expensive place to purchase land in the world, is Southern California? So those are the elements that we have to deal with regard to looking at shelter space. It's not a great hand to be dealt with regard to finding shelter space. So when a church steps up like Meridian Baptist, it's a big deal because a lot of nonprofits don't own land. And if they do, they're using all of their space. So those are the physical limitations and financial limitations with regard to where shelter space is where can you find it, really.
This is about medical care. And it's about whether volunteer doctors, nurses, etc. do checks in any areas where this person is saying, in my area, I've seen sick individuals. And Supervisor, did you hear that one?
No.
It's about whether volunteer nurses, doctors can do any kind of checks on what appears to be sick individuals. Now, in an encampment, that's taking place, right? But if people are on the street, is anybody doing that?
I mean, there's a medical aid our fire department goes, and like Mr. Goebel said, for a lot of our responses for police are homeless calls, fires even more. But we do go out with our homeless outreach team with the police department, and we do take county staff that are medical professionals. But if you know of a nurse or of a doctor that wants to go, we would love to have them tag along with us and be another opportunity to help folks.
Also, fentanyl is a huge problem, and you can actually get Narcan free now yourself. You just watch a half-hour video, and I got it from an organization called anewpath.org. Anewpath.org, and Narcan temporarily reverses the impact of fentanyl. It doesn't erase it, so it just postpones an overdose for perhaps an hour. I did have the opportunity to administer to a person who was homeless, who looked like one of those air puppets at car dealerships. He was flailing, and I said to his friend, I said, "Do you need Narcan?" He said, "Yes, we do." They know how to get it, but you can get it too. And especially as parents or grandparents, kids are overdosing too. And kids you don't think would ever overdose from fentanyl, because these drugs are coming in counterfeit off of the internet. So anewpath.org, a half-hour video, and you can carry Narcan in your car like I do.
I think,
Barry, the opioid fentanyl crisis is huge. Last year we lost 1,000 people, 1,000 kids from our community. We had a 400% increase, and I, along with Chairman Fletcher, have authored a board letter that's coming up on Tuesday that we're going to be voting on with a framework. The drug companies that put these drugs together have been sued, and we're expecting to get as much as $100 million. And we didn't want to wait until the money arrived. We wanted to put the framework together early, so as the money arrives, we can address it right away. There's new technologies out there that are just remarkable. We can actually send you a bag, and you can go into your medicine box or medicine cabinet and dump all the pills you're not using anymore, so your kids don't have access to any kind of opioid and get addicted. It renders it useless, and you can just then pour it down the toilet without impacting the water or sewer system. So there's a lot of technologies moving forward. I know that a lot of folks in my district are not fond of Fletcher, but you know what? When somebody has a good idea and it helps our community, in East County we have 2 words for that: thank you. And I'm thankful that he is moving so hard, because the #1 district impacted by this is my district, more than any other district. So this is really important stuff. And Steve, again, thank you for your leadership on this issue.
I think this has been addressed. I just want to make use of junk land or surplus land to erect tiny houses, use of unauthorized, underutilized, or vacant retail and warehouse space. Phil, I think you've touched on this. They've got to be a willing party. They've got to be willing to lease it, or you need to own it, or it needs to be government land. So I think that probably addresses it. Carol, I didn't see you earlier. Carol Lewis is here, also involved in El Cajon Collaborative. You want to stand up? Because people may want to, some of the you saw Ivan back there from East County Transit, but some of the nonprofits that are here, Homa Guiding Hands, not necessarily involved in this one, but I see some other nonprofit folks back there too, like Kay. Hi, Kay. Hi. How are you? So. Well, yeah, but I just like to acknowledge folks that are doing good work in the community, right? Honor camps, fire training camp at Descanso, Lake Barriet areas. Okay, this is County of San Diego. Shelters. Why don't you house the folks at these facilities while they're being detoxed and realigned into society?
So, remember I said we can't force anybody to do anything? So if we go to you and say, hey, would you like to go there? No one's going to accept it. They want to stay. Every study, now there's always exceptions to the rule, but every study shows that people want to be in the community that they came from, and they're not going to leave that community. So we would love to do that, but we want effective treatment.
The NIMBY thing has been addressed a couple times, not in my backyard, right? One city in El Cajon recently discussed, it wasn't the city of El Cajon, but recently discussed the potential of doing something like out at Camp Lockett in the Campo area, about taking homeless people and putting them there while they're getting realigned, as this person put it. It's funny. The only folks that showed up at that city council meeting to oppose it were the folks that lived in Campo. So so you're also dealing with that the mentality of, well, take care of it in your own community, don't take care of it in ours type of, that is often one of the things. So
can I address that one really briefly?
Absolutely.
It's important for the public to know that who knows exactly where ECTLC is?
East County,
does it look like a
County,
homeless encampment around there?
East County Transition.
No, it does not. It does not. If these organizations are running the program well, you do not know there are formerly homeless people living there. If they're not allowing drugs, if they're not allowing alcohol, if there are people that are saying, you know what, I'm done living this life. I want to learn financial management. I want to learn personal responsibility. I want to get off of drugs. I want to get my kids back. I mean, I know what it's like. These organizations do a great job, and so if you know these organizations, San Diego Rescue Mission there's another organization. You drive past their facility, you wouldn't know that there's formerly homeless people there. They're just regular people. So that's something that we need to understand as neighbors, that there's great organizations out here that run really good programs that are very good neighbors to existing communities. And so if you judge it based off of their performance, not off of our own ideas in our head of what it's going to look like.
Great, thanks, Bill. There's a lot of very specific questions here where the staff has already tagged them with the sticky about follow-up. Again, if you submitted a question and you haven't heard it asked today, but you would like an answer to it and you did not put your name on the back, come up here. I'll help you go through them and find yours, so we can do that. Okay, let's wrap it up now. And again, this doesn't preclude one-on-one discussion after this. Anybody want to just briefly say anything to close it out?
I'll be up here. Come on up, talk to me. I'll be here as long as you'd like to talk to me.
Thank you for coming. This is more important to me than a Padre game, so we'll all stay as long as you need to have us stay, at least.
Okay, I guess no one else wants to say anything. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you coming. Please let's give them a round of applause before you go.